Chapter 3092. The faces of the people from the underworld palace turned solemn. After exchanging glances, they seemed to have understood the meaning behind Yi Qing Luo's words. A trace of viciousness flashed across old Lai's eyes. He clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. We will definitely look for the Palace of Darkness and demand an answer. I only hope that when the time comes, you can still maintain your current thoughts. Yi Qing Luo's charming eyes swept past the crowd from Underworld Palace calmly. That bunch of people from secluded Darkness Palace. Not only are their methods outstanding, their control over people's hearts is also outstanding. In other words, if they came looking for them, the gloomy palace would naturally think of a way to appease them. The faces of the Underworld Palace's people were filled with anger. The human heart? We don't have a so-called heart. We were tricked by Gloomy Palace once, but we will not be tricked a second time. Yi Qing Luo smiled. I hope so. Regardless of whether Miss Yi accepts it or not, according to the rules of the Hell Palace owes you a favor. In the future, if Miss Yi comes to the Earth domain and has any needs, the Underworld Palace will definitely do its best. The people of Underworld Palace insisted on their own rules. Of course, the reason why they chose to adhere to the rules of the Underworld Palace was not only because they had to abide by the rules that they themselves had set. Instead, the power behind Yi Qing Luo. Everyone could see that. Although Yi Qing Luo was just a lady from the lower realm. But the people around Yi Qing Luo. Each of their statuses was more impressive than the other. Even the historian of balance from the heavenly law realm did not want to provoke her. No matter how unafraid they were of death, they weren't willing to become enemies with Yi Qing Luo. Most importantly, they had a common enemy, Abyss Palace. Yi Qing Luo and the rest left the Hell Palace. The carriage floated in the sky, followed by a huge green wolf. Through the veil, Yi Qing Luo could clearly feel Zhu Wuxian's burning gaze. Yi Qing Luo wanted to open her mouth several times to make Zhu Wuxian shift his gaze away. She was also worried that if she said it out loud, her boyfriend's vinegar jar would overturn again. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she leaned her petite body further into Dmo Xian's arms. Dmo Xian's long arm gently embraced her as he lowered his eyes to look at the person in his embrace. His deep inky eyes shot a cold glance at the person who was following behind him. A dark glint flashed across his eyes. Following that, he lowered his head and gently kissed Yi Qing Luo's hair. Lil Luo, rest for a while, we'll reach the Imperial Palace very soon. Huh? Yi Qing Luo didn't quite understand the meaning behind Dmo Xian's words. Just as he was about to raise his head. But when he moved, she could smell the elegant sandalwood scent on the man's body. Bit by bit, it surrounded her body. The smell of sandalwood was extremely elegant and intoxicating. Just as his body and mind relaxed, her eyelids became heavier and heavier. After that, he fell into a deep slumber. Dmo Xian lowered his eyes as he listened to the girl's gentle breathing. He gently moved the girl's body into a comfortable position in his arms. Then, he raised a hand, and his sleeve fluttered. In the blink of an eye, he took off his purple robe and wrapped it around the young girl's body. How much longer are you going to watch? Dmo Xian hugged Yi Qing Lu tightly as he spoke in a cold voice. Outside the carriage, it was silent. Dmo Xian's eyes turned cold as his voice turned even colder. No matter how you watch, Lil Luo, will not be yours. Your actions will only make Lil Luo, feel troubled. Perhaps it was because of the mention of Yi Qing Luo. Outside the carriage, a huge shadow immediately shrouded over. Chapter 3093. Zhu Wuxian was lying on the back of the green wolf. The huge green wolf's thick fur wrapped around his body, revealing only his grave and stern face. Zhu Wuxian looked coldly at the two people in the carriage who were tightly hugging each other. His black eyes shone with a deep light. If it bothers you, give her back to me. His voice was calm and cold. As long as she's mine, she won't be troubled. Zhu Wuxian's words made Dmo Xian's brows creased even tighter. Zhu Wuxian, Lil Luo, was never yours. What do you mean by returning it to you? What do you think little Luo is? Treat her as my woman, Zhu Wuxin said with a sinister expression. Zhu Wu Xian. Dmo Xian's eyes were deep and serene as he spat out these 3 words in an icy cold tone. All of a sudden, flames erupted from his body. Even the 4 maids and 2 protectors outside the carriage couldn't help but shiver. Zhu Wu Xian's thin lips curled up. There was not the slightest hint of a smile on his face. Instead, there was a hint of disdain and mockery. Trying to persuade me to give up Yiqing Luo? Are you trying to persuade me to fulfill your love? His black eyes narrowed, and coldness spread from his pupils. There was also a hint of mockery in his tone. What a pity. I, Zhu Wuxin, have never been a gentleman, and I don't have the thought of helping others achieve their dreams. His voice turned gloomier and gloomier, as though it was wrapped in frost. Yiqing Luo is mine, the future will only be mine. If I can't get her, I'd rather destroy her than to fulfill your wishes. The expression on Dmo Xian's face turned increasingly ruthless and gloomy. The might released from Xiao Chen's body caused the surrounding curtains to flutter wildly. The 4 maids were so nervous that they didn't dare to move. Yu glanced at Zhu Wu Xian and cursed him 100 times in her heart. This Zhu Wuxin was seriously too ignorant of what was good for him. He dared to snatch Di Zun's woman, and he even dared to be so arrogant. If the overlord was angry, he could tear him apart with his bare hands. Even Yu and Ale, the 2 guardians, were somewhat unable to withstand the powerful pressure. They turned their pleading gazes towards the mistress of the imperial palace who was sleeping soundly in Dmo Xian's arms. Di Zun was furious. Only the mistress could pacify him. However, no matter how arrogant the Di Zun was, and how majestic his aura was, Yiqing Luo wasn't affected at all. Her lips still hung a faint smile as her hands wrapped around Dmo Xian's waist. Obviously, she was having a sweet dream about Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian had already tried his best to suppress his urge to kill Zhu Wu Xian. He understood Yiqing Luo. He knew his woman. To Yiqing Luo. She thought that she had taken over the original identity of Yiqing Luo. Because of her existence, she had gone against the original Yiqing Luo and Zhu Wu Xian's promise when they were young. She more or less felt a little guilty towards Zhu Wuxin. In particular, Zhu Wuxin had saved her several times because of the promise he made when they were young. Yiqing Luo was very grateful towards Zhu Wu Xian. If he really killed Zhu Wuxin, there would definitely be a barrier between him and Yiqing Luo. Dmo Xian's eyelids drooped as he gazed deeply at the person in his arms. Soon after, he forcefully shut his eyes as he restrained the vicious aura around him. Zhu Wu Xian didn't have the mood to tangle with Dmo Xian any further. For a moment, they were both speechless. This strange atmosphere. It made the 2 guardians shiver uncontrollably. The 2 of them were in a stalemate. They were afraid. The 2 of them remained silent. They also felt their hairs standing on end. They were very suspicious. Letting Zhu Wu Xian stay in the imperial palace. Chapter 3094. Imperial Palace. Yiqing Luo woke up when Dmo Xian carried her back to her princess-like room. The minute she opened her eyes, she saw the entire room in pink. Yiqing Luo went into a daze for a moment. After some time, her vision was fixed on Dmo Xian's face. "We're back?" She was still thinking of seeing how Dmo Xian brought her through the realm door. How could she be so disappointing, falling asleep in the carriage? It seemed, on the way to the Hell's Palace, she felt dizzy for a moment and then they reached the Hell's Palace. Thinking of the sandalwood scent she smelled before she fell asleep. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as her eyes suddenly widened and her little hand grabbed Dmo Xian's collar. "Tell me honestly, did you intentionally make me fall asleep?" Dmo Xian's slender long hand caressed her lips as he gave a low and hoarse smile. "Isn't it because you wanted to stay in my arms, so you fell asleep?" Yi Qing Luo opened her mouth and bit his finger as she stared at him resentfully. Don't think that by teasing me, you can change the topic. Tell me honestly, you made me fall asleep. What unspeakable things are you planning to do behind my back? Do what? What do you think? His low and hoarse voice was filled with magnetism. His finger intentionally teased between her teeth. His gaze was filled with infatuation. It was an obvious indication of some kind of feelings. Yi Qing Luo's cheeks flushed red. She bit hard on his finger and immediately let go. Don't use this method to change the topic, I don't fall for it. Pretty boy trick or something. Use it a few more times. She would also develop antibodies all right. Dmo Xian laughed lightly as he bent down and planted a kiss on her lips. All right, I admit that I'm the reason why you fell asleep. His forehead was placed on hers. The distance between the two of them was very close. Why? Yi Qing Luo asked. Dmo Xian caressed her face gently. I don't want you to see me finding trouble with Zhu Wu Xian. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as she abruptly sat upright, pulling the distance between the two of them apart. You and Zhu Wu Xian fought? The minute she fell asleep, the two of them started fighting? Indeed, letting Zhu Wuxin stay in the imperial palace was a wrong choice. I don't have the habit of taking advantage of others. Dmo Xian pinched her nose. Yi Qing Luo's hands held onto his mischievous large palm. Where did you arrange for Zhu Wu Xian to stay? Guest room. The human face hiding in Zhu Wuxin's right arm was a hidden danger. No matter how much he disliked Zhu Wuxin, Dmo Xian would not arrange for Zhu Wu Xian to be too far away from him. He held on to her hand as his body leaned downwards. A rich male hormonal scent enveloped Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's back fell onto the soft big bed. She raised her eyes and met the man's deep peach blossom eyes. The flowing light was overflowing with a myriad of splendor. Yi Qing Luo, who had already said that she had developed an immunity to the seduction, was once again mesmerized by the man's magnificent looks. I don't like the sound of his name coming from you. Dmo Xian lowered his head and captured her lips. This kiss was extremely forceful. Yi Qing Luo didn't even have time to struggle before she was completely drowned by the man's scent. Until a rhythmic knocking sound was heard outside the door, interrupting the warmth and sweetness in the room. Dmo Xian's expression was extremely ugly, with an unsatisfied expression. Yi Qing Luo pushed him away as she speedily tidied up her clothes and coughed lightly. What's the matter? Madam. Chapter 3095. Beiyuan? Yi Qing Luo immediately pushed away the man who wanted to hug her and slid down from the pink princess bed. Tang Beiyuan was under Dmo Xian's orders to personally send Gu Jingyu back to Wind Valley sect. I have something urgent to report. Could it be, what happened? Although she could not respond to Gu Jingyu's feelings. But for her, Gu Jingyu was also her friend. Yi Qing Luo opened the door and walked out. What happened? Tang Beiyuan cupped her fists towards Yi Qing Luo. Mistress, something has happened in South Water Continent. Something happened? Yi Qing Luo frowned. What happened? Tang Beiyuan was just about to speak when she saw Dmo Xian walking out of the house with a gloomy face. Her vision swiftly swept past Yi Qing Luo's lips. He took another look at Dmo Xian's expression. As someone with a fiancé, she naturally knew what had happened in the room earlier. Tang Beiyuan lowered her head in silence. Yi Qing Luo turned her head back and took a look at the gloomy man behind her. She stretched out her hand and held his large palm. Dmo Xian's expression then eased up a little as he glanced at Tang Beiyuan. Speak. When I brought young sect Master Gu to the Wind Valley sect, I discovered that South Wave Continent has already. Tang Beiyuan's expression was grave. It has already been plunged into misery and suffering. It is said that, the monarch of South Wave Continent has already fled, the people will be plunged into misery and suffering? Yi Qing Luo was stunned. South Wave's continent is one of the more developed continents among the 4 continents. Why would they suddenly start a war? Which continent attacked the South Waves continent? No. Tang Beiyuan shook her head. The Wind Valley sect master said it happened half a month ago. It was a group of monsters. It said that no matter what we do, we won't be able to kill them. They're impervious to swords and spears, fearless of fire and water. We can only watch as they slaughter one city after another. Unkillable? Corpse puppet? The first thing that popped up in Yiqing Luo's mind was the appearance of the corpse puppet. Apart from the Dark Palace's corpse puppets, Yiqing Luo couldn't think of any other unkillable monster. Tang Beiyuan had never seen a corpse puppet before, so she wasn't sure what Yiqing Luo was talking about. She paused for a moment, then continued, "When I left, South Waves continent had already been occupied by Dark Nether Palace. Now, only Wind Valley sect is still defending South Waves continent, but I'm afraid they won't be able to hold on for long. It really is a corpse puppet." Yiqing Luo clenched her teeth. The Palace of Seclusion found someone to replace Yuan so quickly? After Yuan died. The process of refining corpse puppets should have been interrupted because of this. How could he adjust in such a short time? He could even bring his undead corpse puppets and invade the South Waves continent? Could it be that, right from the start, the Palace of Darkness had already prepared a backup plan? Yiqing Luo looked at Dmo Xian as she asked in puzzlement. Dmo Xian's expression turned grave. "I'm afraid the secluded palace are worried that we will take the opportunity to reduce their forces, so they are so anxious to expand their own forces." His eyes were deep. "The matter of us going to the Underworld Palace, the Palace of Darkness should already know about it. The act of the Palace of Darkness invading the South Waves continent has further confirmed our guesses." Yiqing Luo pursed her lips. "Their motive is really to take over the entire Nirvana realm." But Yiqing Luo couldn't understand why the person behind the scenes of the Palace of Darkness, that person with a distinguished status in the upper realm, had such a deep obsession towards the Nirvana realm. Chapter 3096. Call for help? Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased even tighter. The way to deal with the corpse puppets, other than Xian's mental power, the only way is to extract the Serene Yin's mental power to refine a weapon to kill them. Time is so tight, Yu Yin's mental force has not been extracted, and refining weapons also requires time. Even if the Wind Valley sect asks for help from the Imperial Palace has no way to deal with those monsters. The Emperor Palace's disciples were all living people with flesh and blood. How could they be compared to the corpses of those puppets? The Imperial Palace is unable to agree to the Gufeng sect's patriarch's request for help. Yiqing Luo's expression was solemn. "Beiyuan, please reject the Gufeng sect." Tang Beiyuan nodded. Just as she was about to turn around, she was stopped by a voice. "Beiyuan, agree to the Wind Valley sect." "Ah, Xian." When Yiqing Luo heard Dmo Xian's words, she immediately grabbed his arm tightly. "You should be more familiar with the Imperial Palace's disciples than me. Their mental powers could not possibly be higher than Serene Yin, who specializes in mental powers. Unless his mental strength was higher than Yuan. Otherwise, the corpse puppets wouldn't be able to destroy it at all. Most importantly, the Yin Qi on the corpse puppets could easily corrupt a person's heart. Listen to me." Dmo Xian raised his large palm and stroked her hair, comforting her. "Whether it's for public or private reasons, we can't let Netherworld Palace occupy the South Water continent. Once Nether Palace absorbs the forces of the South Waves continent, the other 3 continents will be restrained. If the Tenyu Palace develops, the Imperial Palace will become a stepping stone for the Tenyu Palace, and the Nirvana realm will cease to exist." Yiqing Luo was stunned. Her pink lips moved, but she couldn't say a single word of rebuttal. Indeed. The target of the Dark Nether Palace was obviously the entire Nirvana realm. The southern continent was just a starting point. If secluded Darkness Palace invaded the South Water continent and then attacked the West Water continent in one fell swoop, the West continent, which had just experienced a great battle with the dark forces and was still recuperating, was definitely no match for the undead corpse puppets. In this way, the East and North continents would be in imminent danger. She and Dmo Xian had gone to the underworld palace. The palace of gloomy darkness must have known through Bai Mei's thick skin. They must also know that the balance historian of the heavenly law realm had met with them. However, the Dark Nether Palace still dared to invade the South Water continent in such a wantonly manner, directly targeting the entire Nirvana realm. Clearly, he was not afraid of the heavenly law realm interfering. Or perhaps, the person behind the Tenyu Palace had a higher status than the heavenly law realm? But, if his status was so high, why did they have to target a small shrimp like her? Why did he have to invade the entire Nirvana realm? Just because she was together with Dmo Xian? Just because Dmo Xian stayed in Nirvana realm, it caused the people behind the Nether Palace to feel that there was some unspeakable secret in Nirvana realm? No, something was not right. If the other party was really as she guessed. His status was above the heavenly law realm and he was mysterious and noble. Unless it was necessary. The other party would never take such a huge risk to destroy the balance between realms that had been maintained for centuries, or even millennia. Little Luo, Dmo Xian's voice rang once again. His hand, gently placed on Yiqing Luo's shoulder. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and met his gaze. The most important thing is. Dmo Xian looked at her, agree to Wind Valley Sect's request for help, then you can let Wind Valley Sect use the Vermilion Bird Pearl as an exchange condition. Vermilion Bird Pearl. Yiqing Luo suddenly understood, the main reason why you agreed to Wind Valley Sect's request for help, is because of the Vermilion Bird Pearl? Dmo Xian didn't refute. Chapter 3097. More than that, it was still a warm current. She disregarded her shyness and Tang Beiyuan's presence. She stretched out her arms and wrapped them around Dmo Xian's waist. She leaned her body completely into Dmo Xian's arms. Agreeing to Wind Valley Sect's request for help. Ultimately, it was all for her. In order to help her collect the 4 sacred beasts' pearls, in order to open the door to the upper realm. Ah Xian, thank you. She spoke in a hoarse voice as her little face rubbed against his arms. The man's strong arms wrapped around her tightly. His broad and warm embrace gave her a great sense of security. He chuckled as his magnetic and mellow voice floated down from above her head. Silly girl, I'm not only doing this for you, but also for myself, for our future. While speaking, Dmo Xian had already bent down and pressed his thin lips against her ear. The man's warm breath sprayed out. He smiled, I really can't wait to make you my wife. Yiqing Luo's petite body trembled slightly. Her fingers which were clutching the man's robe unconsciously curled up. Her little face which was buried in the man's arms was stained with a few patches of red. Beiyuan, go and reply to Wind Valley Sect. Dmo Xian gently caressed Yiqing Luo's fine black hair as he looked up at Tang Beiyuan. Bring the conditions that I have mentioned over. Yes. Tang Beiyuan responded. Wait. Yiqing Luo popped out her little head from Dmo Xian's arms. Beiyuan, leave the matter of replying to Wind Valley Sect to others first, I still have something to trouble you with. Tang Beiyuan was stunned for a moment before she nodded, yes, mistress. Hearing Tang Beiyuan's serious address, Yiqing Luo's temperature which had dropped with great difficulty rose again. She pursed her pink lips and said, if it's possible, ask Wind Valley Sect's patriarch if they can hold on for another 3 days. 3 days later, the Imperial Palace will definitely rush over. 3 days. Tang Beiyuan was slightly hesitant, the situation in South Continent isn't too optimistic, 3 days, might be a little difficult. First bring a portion of the Xian generation disciples to South Continent. 3 days later, I will personally go over with little Luo, Dmo Xian said. Tang Beiyuan answered, yes. After Tang Beiyuan left, Dmo Xian Huan hugged Yiqing Luo's petite body tightly as he cupped her little face with one hand. Want Beiyuan to refine a batch of weapons to go against the undead puppets in these 3 days? Yiqing Luo's hands wrapped around his neck. No one knows me better than Xian, you're really a roundworm in my stomach. Indeed, this was what she had in mind. Within her azure dew bracelet, a dark and sinister mental energy was sealed. First, he extracted a portion of his mental power and let Tang Beiyuan use it to refine a portion of the weapons. At least when it came to undead puppets, he wouldn't be in such a sorry state. I'll bring you to the armament refining hall. Dmo Xian gave her a peck on her lips and immediately carried her up, striding out of the courtyard. Yiqing Luo's legs trembled. Don't hug me like this. If the maids and disciples see this, I'm very embarrassed. Although that was what he said. But Yiqing Luo's brows were filled with a blissful and sweet smile. The hands which were wrapped around Dmo Xian's neck refused to loosen for a long time. Towards Dmo Xian's action to declare her identity to the entire imperial palace, Yiqing Luo was naturally delighted. There was no woman who didn't like their beloved man to declare his identity. The two of them were filled with warmth and sweetness. But they didn't notice it. Outside the courtyard, on top of a thick and sturdy tree, a red figure slowly descended. The man's face was grave and stern, surrounded by a layer of austere intent. His frosty eyes stared maliciously at the two figures which were getting further and further away. His eyes turned gloomier and colder. Mini theater, ZOMO, it seems, it's a new month, forgot to ask for the monthly votes? Dmo Xian, cold glance you just realized. Without the support of the monthly votes, this lord's skill points to flirt with Lil Luo, are almost used up, do you know that? Yiqing Luo, sneer you just realized. Without the energy of the monthly votes, I can't even use the skill to flirt with Xian. ZOMO. You too, flirting here and there, is it really good to abuse a single dog? Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo, rubbing their fists hee, don't let this lord, me, flirt with Lil Luo, Xian, we'll stop acting. Stop acting, do you understand? The purpose of our appearance is to flirt. Chapter 3098. 3 days later. Yiqing Luo and Tang Beiyuan walked out of the armament refining hall. Their fine black hair was in a mess, their faces were haggard and their eyes were green, showing signs of fatigue. Yiqing Luo yawned and as she walked, she glanced sideways at Tang Beiyuan. Beiyuan, go back and rest first. What about you? After 3 days of refining weapons together, Tang Beiyuan finally changed the way she addressed Yiqing Luo and called her by her name. Yiqing Luo stretched her waist lazily, let's not waste any more time. I'll go back and tidy myself up, then bring the weapons and head toward South Continent with Xian. I'll go too. Tang Beiyuan's lips curled slightly, her eyes were filled with fatigue but it didn't hide the melancholy in her eyes. I'll go back to tidy myself up now, wait for me. You. Yiqing Luo frowned, you should be very clear that the trip to South Continent might be life-threatening. I know. Tang Beiyuan smiled, that's why I have to go. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips in silence. Tang Beiyuan patted her shoulder lightly and smiled calmly, moreover, these weapons to deal with the puppets are all refined by me. If I go with you, it will be easier for me to bring out the best effect and advantage of each weapon. Think it through carefully. Yiqing Luo didn't try to dissuade her, she respected everyone's choice. After making an appointment to meet Tang Beiyuan at the entrance of the palace, Yiqing Luo walked towards the courtyard. She just turned around. The familiar and elegant scent of sandalwood entered her nostrils. Her eyes lit up as her lips curled into a smile. Sorry, I was dealing with the palace's matters earlier, so I'm late. The man's gentle and magnetic voice floated down from above. Yiqing Luo was exhausted as she unceremoniously leaned her weight into Dmo Xian's arms. Carry me back as punishment. She just wrapped her arms around Dmo Xian's waist. Yiqing Luo suddenly thought of something as her face congealed in satisfaction and she hurriedly stretched out both hands to push Dmo Xian. Wait, you can't carry me now. She just struggled. The man's arms suddenly tightened. The rich male hormonal scent almost intoxicated Yiqing Luo's heart. Dmo Xian's thin lips curled up frivolously. I haven't seen you for 3 days. I miss you so much that I'm going crazy. how can I not hug you? The man's words of love were husky and magnetic. A pair of blazing eyes, as if a raging fire was about to burn. Yiqing Luo's cheeks flushed red. Her brain had already been seduced by the man's sweet nothings. But her body was still resisting the man's intimate embrace again. Dmo Xian held both her hands that were pushing him away. His low and husky voice was mellow and sexy. Haven't seen me for 3 days, don't you miss me? She wanted to say no. His lips parted slightly, but not a single word came out. Why was it that she was always the one who was unable to extricate herself from Dmo Xian's seduction? Why did you reject me? Dmo Xian saw that she had stopped struggling and continued to tempt her with a low and husky laugh. Yiqing Luo's hands were held by him and her body was locked in his embrace, so there was no way for her to escape. In the end, she could only blush as she muttered, I haven't bathed in 3 days. The smell stinks. Finishing her words, she buried her face into Dmo Xian's arms. He was so embarrassed that he didn't want to speak anymore. But, after she finished her words, silence pervaded the air. This made Yiqing Luo feel even more embarrassed. After a moment of silence, she was angered by this strange atmosphere, gritting her teeth as she raised her head and stared angrily at Dmo Xian, star. Chapter 3099. Ha. Ha 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 ha. The man burst out laughing. His chest undulated, showing how carefree the man was when he laughed. The more he laughed, Yiqing Luo only felt more embarrassed. She bit her lower lip, struggled her hands and snorted angrily, laugh, laugh, laugh. Laugh all you want. The more she struggled, the tighter the man hugged her. Also, the more wantonly he laughed. Perhaps he sensed the young lady in his arms, whose anger was on the verge of exploding. Dmo Xian smiled as he held her slender waist tightly. His thin lips slowly landed on her lips. I don't despise you. Yiqing Luo. Her cheeks turned even redder. This was no longer embarrassment, but annoyance. Unfortunately, the man unknowingly raised his hand and gently rubbed Yiqing Luo's hair. Even if you don't bathe for 3 years, I won't despise you. Dmo Xian. Yiqing Luo gritted her teeth, raised her elbow and was about to knock Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian laughed lightly as he blocked her hand. Following that, his long arms scooped. Conveniently, he carried her up by the waist. Yiqing Luo's hands instinctively hooked around his neck. All right, I'll stop teasing you. No matter how I tease you, your face is still so ugly. Dmo Xian gently kissed her eyes. Rest first, I'll call you later. No. Today is the 3rd day, we need. Yiqing Luo shook her head. I'll arrange it and set off immediately. Dmo Xian interrupted her words. Rest first, I'll help you bathe and change your clothes. Yiqing Luo. How on earth did he say to help her bathe in such a serious manner? It's not the first time I helped you bathe, why are you still shy? Dmo Xian sensed her gaze and looked down at her. Yiqing Luo. Can't be shy if it's not the first time. Don't say it as if helping her bathe was a very normal thing. Dmo Xian laughed softly. Don't worry, I won't take the opportunity to do anything to you. He paused and continued. You're so tired, no matter what I do to you, you don't have any reaction, this is so boring. Yiqing Luo. Could she hammer him to death? In the end, Yiqing Luo couldn't resist the physical exhaustion and sleepiness as she fell into a deep sleep after messing around with Dmo Xian for a while. By the time Yiqing Luo woke up, it was already noon the next day. She opened her eyes and saw the man's smooth chin. At this moment, she was lying on Dmo Xian's lap and her arms were still wrapped around his waist. This posture, it was a little too ambiguous. She blinked her eyes, still a little confused. Sensing that Yiqing Luo had woken up, the man lowered his eyes. The obsidian-like peach blossom eyes reflected into Yiqing Luo's pupils. Their eyes met. You're awake? Are you hungry? Dmo Xian caressed her face lightly. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes again, and after some time, she seemed to have recalled something as she sat up abruptly. Didn't you say that you would wake me up after helping me bathe? Pfft, an irrepressible chuckle came from the side. Yiqing Luo immediately turned her head over. She then discovered that she was sitting in a carriage similar to a horse carriage, and the curtains on both sides were fluttering from time to time. Yiqing Luo could see a large patch of white clouds moving backwards rapidly. Which meant to say, now, it was little Nine who was dragging the carriage, running wildly in the sky. That laughter seemed to come from outside the carriage. Yiqing Luo immediately climbed up from Dmo Xian's lap and pulled the curtains open. She saw Tang Beiyuan, who was riding on a flying magical beast outside the curtains, looking at her with an evil smile. Chapter 3100. I was wondering why the Overlord personally carried you up the carriage, so. Everything was because the Overlord was serving you. Tang Beiyuan lowered her voice to tease. But she intentionally emphasized on the word, serving. Yiqing Luo tugged the curtains hard and shrank back into the carriage. She stared furiously at Dmo Xian. Why didn't you tell me that we're on the way to South Continent? You didn't give me a chance to speak. Dmo Xian was innocent. Yiqing Luo was embarrassed as she pursed her lips. It's all your fault. You didn't wake me up earlier. It's so embarrassing. You're very tired and need to rest. Dmo Xian stretched out his hand and pulled the young lady into his arms. They all know that you're my future wife and you won't be embarrassed. His delicate kiss landed on her forehead. They also don't dare to laugh at you. Yiqing Luo shrank backwards, avoiding his kiss with an unhappy look. It was easy to say. They didn't dare to laugh, but not knowing how to laugh were two different things. Dmo Xian's underlings had heard their private words. She couldn't even look at them in the eye in future. Yiqing Luo wanted to cry, but no tears came out, so embarrassed that she wanted to turn back time. Her evasion made Dmo Xian misunderstood. He tightened his arm and lifted her lower jaw as his fingertip brushed past her lips. I said before, I don't despise you, don't hide from me. Yiqing Luo, despise your grandpa. I despise you. Just as Yiqing Luo was filled with embarrassment, a knocking sound was heard from outside the carriage. Yiqing Luo walked over with a green face as she lifted the curtains. Tang Beiyuan, you still want to tease. Her words were stuck in her throat when she saw the figure outside the carriage. After the curtains were lifted, what he saw was an extremely grave and stern face. Black pupils were as cold as ice as he fixed his eyes on her, as though he wanted to freeze her into ice. So cold that it was bone-chilling. The anger on Yiqing Luo's face slowly dissipated. Chu Wu Xian. Outside the carriage, riding on a huge green wolf, wasn't that Chu Wu Xian? The human face in Chu Wu Xian's right arm had yet to be resolved. They were heading towards South Continent. Zhu Wuxin indeed had to accompany them. Was he the one who helped you bathe yesterday? Zhu Wuxin asked with a cold expression. Yiqing Luo frowned. Couldn't he tell that she really didn't want to discuss this topic? Evidently, Zhu Wuxin could not tell. Seeing that Yiqing Luo didn't reply, Zhu Wu Xian continued asking, did you willingly allow him to help you wash or did he force you? Yiqing Luo, she pulled down the curtain again, blocking Zhu Wuxin's face. Yiqing Luo, if he forced you, tell me. I will help you take revenge. Zhu Wu Xian did not give up and said coldly from outside the carriage. You, shut up. Yiqing Luo couldn't take it anymore. His rage was about to be ignited. Dmo Xian embraced her once again. Her body fell backwards and fell into Dmo Xian's arms. The man's hands encircled her waist. A large palm was still pressed against her abdomen. The scorching and thick feeling made Yiqing Luo's petite body tremble slightly. Lil Luo, or is this Lord's future wife? This is merely a normal action and has nothing to do with you. Dmo Xian's calm voice rang faintly. His long and narrow peach blossom eyes curled as a cold glint flashed past the corners of his eyes. Lil Luo, is this Lord's future wife so naturally? This is also voluntary. Outside the carriage, Zhu Wu Xian didn't say another word. Chapter 3101. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo's little hand held on to Dmo Xian's big palm as she called out to him softly, "Don't say any more. I'm so sorry. I'm merely telling the truth to those pestering people." Dmo Xian's eyes were sinister as he looked outside the curtain, as though he was looking at Zhu Wu Xian through the carriage. Yiqing Luo wanted to say something as she raised her head to look at him. But she discovered that Dmo Xian's expression was extremely ugly. She was stunned, but in the end, she didn't say anything else. Dmo Xian's vinegar jar was overturned again. So be it if he was embarrassed. Anyway, love and whatnot should be flaunted. Just let Dmo Xian declare his sovereignty, his ownership. If it could let Zhu Wu Xian know that he should back off, that would be even better. The group of people, under the tense and strange atmosphere, under the acceleration of their own war pets. That night, they arrived at South Continent's main city, Valley Wind City. After walking out of the carriage, Yiqing Luo was stunned by the current situation in Valley Wind City. She remembered. Previously, when she took part in the Academy's exchange meet, she came to South Continent. The prosperous scene in South Continent was still fresh in her memory. But now, it made one's heart heavy. The sky was filled with a dense mass of flying beasts, as though dark clouds were rolling. And it was faintly mixed with lightning and thunder. The magical beasts' roars and the flying beasts' cries rose and fell, wave after wave. Looking at Valley Wind City, the flames of war raged in the sky. Figures dressed in black Palace of Darkness uniform walked back and forth. Magical beasts, flying beasts, Palace of Darkness people as well as dead corpses and puppets, filled the entire Valley Wind City. Ah! Help! Suddenly, a miserable cry was heard not far ahead. Everyone looked towards the direction of the sound. They saw a few commoners being pressed onto the ground by a few magical beasts. They only managed to make a few cries for help before they were torn into pieces by the magical beasts. It was extremely cruel and bloody. The people from Palace of Darkness are too cruel. Tang Beiyuan was also stunned by this scene. Ah Yu, Ah Lei, and Ah Feng, the three guardians, speedily stood in front of Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo as they looked around vigilantly. The few of them's appearance. This had already attracted the attention of the demonic beasts. When I came here a few days ago, it wasn't this tragic. Tang Beiyuan sucked in a breath of cold air. Valley Wind City has become like this. Could it be that Valley Wind sect couldn't have held on? He's still holding on. Yiqing Luo's gaze shot towards the direction of Valley Wind City. There are still people fighting with the birds and beasts. From time to time, the birds in the sky would rush down and crash into the buildings in Gufeng City. The beasts were also fiercely tearing and destroying everything in Valley Wind City. But, on the city wall, there were also groups of armored soldiers dealing with the birds and beasts. There are innocent people over there. Take them to a safe place. The general on the city wall noticed that the few people were gradually surrounded by the beasts and people from the Palace of Darkness. He immediately ordered the soldiers behind him. 10 over soldiers immediately flew down from the city walls, blocking in front of Yiqing Luo and the others. The soldiers were all covered with scattered wounds, and there were new wounds which were still bleeding. But they clenched the weapons in their hands tightly as they stood firmly in front of Yiqing Luo and the others. Facing the savage and bloody, inhumane walking beasts, the people from Palace of Darkness had no fear at all. You all are from Valley Wind sect? Yiqing Luo opened her mouth to ask. The soldiers turned their heads curiously as they took a look at Yiqing Luo. For any normal person, on seeing Valley Wind City turning into such a bloody and brutal scene, no matter what they did, they would be scared out of their wits. Chapter 3102. In the South Waves continent, only Valley Wind City has surviving citizens? Are the other cities still holding on? Yiqing Luo didn't bother about the soldiers' puzzlement as she continued asking. The soldiers looked at each other in dismay. One of the soldiers sized up the people in front of him. He felt that the 7 people in front of him were all handsome men and beautiful women, and they all had extraordinary temperaments. It was obvious that he was no ordinary person. Especially, why do I feel like, that beautiful girl dressed in red, who was devastatingly beautiful, looked somewhat familiar. However, with the enemy in front of him, his brain was stuffed. For a moment, he couldn't remember where he had seen her. Follow us closely. We'll bring you to the safe zone first. The soldiers didn't have the time to talk to Yiqing Luo and the others. Brandishing the weapons in his hands, he prepared to carve out a path of blood. Thousands of magical beasts and the flying beasts in the sky, even if we go to the safety zone, how long can we last? Yiqing Luo and the rest didn't move. Yiqing Luo raised her head and looked at the dark sky. How much longer can Valley Wind City last? The soldiers were startled, and they tightened their grip on their weapons. The expressions on their faces became stern and determined. As long as our Valley Wind sect does not fall, Valley Wind City will definitely hold on. You are already standing in Valley Wind City. These birds and beasts will not let you go. All of you come with us immediately. Our Valley Wind sect's young sect master and elders are guarding there. The secluded Darkness Palace won't be able to harm you for the time being. Wind Valley sect. Yiqing Luo's brows rose slightly as her lips curled into an extremely shallow arc. Then that's right. What? The soldiers still hadn't understood the meaning behind Yiqing Luo's words. Suddenly, he felt a formless pressure spreading from behind him. Soon after, the beautiful young lady with a sweet smile quickly charged into the surging magical beasts ahead. The soldier's eyes widened. Miss. Be careful. Those demonic beasts had no humanity. I just don't understand. Before he could say the words, tender and protective of the fairer sex. The soldiers were so shocked by the scene before them that they couldn't utter a single word. He could only hear the roars of the wild beasts ringing in his ears. The ground shook violently, and cracks appeared on it. The sand and pebbles that filled the air turned into strong gales that blew ferociously. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of a heavy object hitting the ground could be heard. The burly, mountain-like demonic beasts that had wrapped around the young girl were all sent flying in the air like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers. The soldiers were all stunned. This girl, he looked no more than 14 or 15 years old. How could it be so powerful? In the blink of an eye, he had killed more than a dozen magical beasts that had troubled them for months. Caw, it covered the birds that filled the sky and noticed the situation here. It actually gave off a sharp cry and immediately turned into a black long arrow, charging towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Be careful. The soldiers knew very well how terrifying these birds were. He immediately raised his weapon and was about to rush over to protect Yiqing Luo. Just stay here and watch. A low and indifferent voice sounded behind him. The voice was calm, and there was not the slightest trace of emotion. However, it made the soldiers feel as if they were bound by something, unable to move. The soldiers only saw the purple-robed man who had been hugging the young girl from the corner of their eyes, staring at the young girl's direction with adoration. They could obviously see it. The purple-robed man's worry towards that young girl. Chapter 3103. Soldiers. They were obviously arranged to save these people. But they were actually said to be a burden? They were feeling indignant. But the next moment, they saw the sky filled with burning flames and the flying beasts which had fallen onto the ground. They were convinced. Their naked eyes could only see a red shadow, scurrying around. The speed was extremely fast. Everywhere it went. One by one, the flying beasts fell from the sky as though they were free. In just a moment, there were already close to 100 overflying beasts lying on the ground. Piled up on the ground, it formed a small hill. Perhaps they sensed that Yi Qing Luo wasn't someone to be trifled with. The sky full of flying beasts started to scurry into the sky, not daring to have any offensive actions. Swoosh, a gust of strong wind brushed past. The soldiers had yet to react. They heard a young lady's sweet voice coming from behind. These flying beasts are the lowest grade and have no consciousness, so they are easy to deal with. The soldiers were dumbfounded. The young lady flew forward and then back. At most it took less than half an incense's time. After that, the ground was filled with magical beasts' corpses and flying beasts' corpses. This was simply too perverted. You've worked hard. Dmo Xian pulled her into his arms as his large palm gently caressed her fine black hair. Yi Qing Luo's brows curved as she hooked her arms around his neck. I'm so tired after killing so many flying beasts at once. Dmo Xian smiled as he hugged the young lady's waist without any hesitation, encircling her in his arms. The young lady's face was filled with satisfaction as she leaned against Dmo Xian's chest, like a kitten, intimately rubbing against his chest. The surrounding 10 soldiers were dumbstruck. Was this still the battle goddess who went on a killing spree earlier? Just a moment ago, she was still a perverted expert who didn't kill any flying beasts in an instant. The next moment, she had become a delicate little beauty. This span, did it need to be so huge? What's going on? Why are you still standing here for? Hurry and bring them to the safety zone. If the Palace of Darkness army rushes over, you won't be able to leave. Because Yi Qing Luo had killed hundreds of flying beasts. The birds hovering in the sky stopped their attack on Gufeng City for a while. The general on top of the city wall got empty, and when he looked towards Yi Qing Luo and the rest, he discovered that they were still standing on the same spot, not moving at all as he bellowed angrily and anxiously. The 10 soldiers came back to their senses, their faces filled with shock. They carefully looked behind them at the 7 people with extraordinary auras. Everyone, please follow us to see the great general. The South Tide Continent needs talented people like you to save the South Tide Continent. One of the soldiers looked at Yi Qing Luo and the others in anticipation and joy. We'll talk about it when we get there. Yi Qing Luo popped out her little head and smiled at them. Towards these 10 soldiers, Yi Qing Luo had a good impression of them. After all, when Valley Wind City was on the brink of life and death, for the sake of Valley Wind City and for the sake of the innocent people, the generals and soldiers who were willing to stand guard here were worthy of respect. This place was indeed not the right place to talk. A group of people quickly headed towards the city wall. Along the way, they were obstructed by demonic beasts and patrolling disciples of the Palace of Darkness. The soldiers didn't even have time to make a move. They were cut down like cabbages by the 3 youngsters dressed as protectors who had been guarding the side of the purple-robed man, one by one. Very quickly, the group of people reached the top of Gufeng City's city wall. The general speedily went up, but facing these 7 people who obviously had extraordinary auras, he couldn't help but be stunned. Chapter 3104. When the general saw this, he couldn't be bothered to inquire about their identities as he hurriedly called for the doctor. This enthusiasm made Yi Qing Luo a little embarrassed as she nestled in Dmo Xian's arms pretending to be a white lotus. Grand General, Grand General. The soldiers who followed Yi Qing Luo and the rest hurriedly went up to stop the general as they started talking at once. Grand General, you've misunderstood. That young lady isn't injured. Our Valley Wind City is saved. Grand General, let them join us. As long as they're around, Palace of Darkness's schemes will absolutely not succeed. That's right, Grand General, they're very strong. Extremely strong. As long as they make a move, these magical beasts and flying beasts will all be settled. The 10 soldiers were totally convinced of Yi Qing Luo's abilities. The chatter caused the general's head to throb. The commotion over here attracted the attention of the other station soldiers. Instantly pairs of scrutinizing gazes swept past Yi Qing Luo and the others. Apparently, they didn't believe that these 7 people were as powerful as what these 10 soldiers said. After all, These few people had extraordinary bearings as their actions were elegant and noble, and they were excessively good-looking. No matter how they looked, they didn't look like people who roamed around the battlefield. The soldier abruptly raised his hand, interrupting the voices that were still trying to persuade him. Enough, enough. All of you shut up for this general. Instantly, the 10 soldiers seemed as though they had pressed the silent button as they shut their mouths. You say, these 7 people are very powerful and are able to deal with these flying beasts? The general frowned as he asked. The soldiers nodded their heads in unison. The general's gaze swept past those 10 soldiers and saw that their eyes were filled with worship and expectations towards Yiqing Luo and the others. The general's brows creased even tighter as he shifted his gaze towards Yiqing Luo and the others. After some time, he frowned as he shook his head. No matter how skilled and daring they are still made of flesh and blood. We don't know what sinister method Palace of Darkness used to control the endless amount of flying beasts and beasts. Especially when Palace of Darkness has a batch of monsters. At this point, the general's tone became much more solemn. They are but innocent outsiders. We can't drag these innocent people into the conflict of the South Tide continent. That's right, we can't involve innocent people anymore. There are only 7 of them. Not only does the Palace of Gloom have the help of demonic beasts and birds, they also have that group of monsters. We can't harm them. When the other soldiers heard this, they all agreed with the great general's words. The general waved his hand, calming the restless hearts of the soldiers. Following that, he cupped his fists towards Yiqing Luo and the others. Everyone, thank you for being willing to help, but we're not willing to implicate innocent people, causing you to lose your lives in vain. You should head to the safe zone. Once the people from Palace of Gloomy Darkness leave, we will send people to escort you out of the South Tide continent. Are you sure you wish for us to leave? Yiqing Luo raised her brows as she raised her head from Dmo Xian's arms. The corners of her lips curled up slightly. Her smile was enchanting, like a blooming poppy, with a charm that could capture one's soul. When the general's vision was fixed on Yiqing Luo's devastatingly beautiful face, his pupils, bit by bit, slowly expanded. Following that general knelt onto the ground with a put-on sound. His head knocked hard onto the ground. Chapter 3105. To the generals and soldiers, Chen Changxing's expression changed. The great general was their spiritual pillar. From defending Valley Wind City till now, they had never seen the great general lowering his head. Even if it was the people from secluded palace who made use of those monsters to attack the city. The great general had always held his head high and never retreated. Even when facing the sect master of Valley Wind sect, the great general had never lowered his head. This was the first time they saw. The great general had lost his composure. Plop. Dong. After the days. One after another, the soldiers followed their great general and knelt down. No matter what the reason was for the great general to lose his composure. As long as the great general felt that it was right. They felt that it was right. Not long later, there were 20 people kneeling on the city walls. The great general's kneeling. It also made Yiqing Luo and the rest dumbfounded. Yiqing Luo kept the enchanting smile on her lips as she coughed lightly. Great general, please get up first. The great general raised his head as his eyes turned red and his muscles were all tensed up. Miss Yi, Overlord. I beg you, please save the South Continent. Miss Yi? Overlord? The soldiers were all stunned when they heard this form of address. Soon after, an uproar broke out. All of them couldn't suppress the excitement in their hearts as they had long lost their rationality as they raised their heads and stared at Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo. Miss Yi? The one who saved the various academies' elites in Nirvana realm in the blazing flame nest and saved her own continent, the one who was conferred as a heroine. Three Springs Clan's 7th Miss, Yiqing Luo. Overlord? Is he the legendary Dizun? I heard that. Overlord and heroine ye are. Our fiancé and fiancée. If they were to appear, they would definitely appear at the same time. So, these two people are really the heroine and overlord? The soldiers were so excited that they almost cheered. Those 10 soldiers who were sent to save Yi Qing Luo and the rest were suddenly enlightened. I was wondering why Miss Yi looked so familiar. So she is the heroine in the portrait. Yi Qing Luo listened to the soldiers' excited discussion. She was embarrassed as she patted Dmo Xian's arm, asking him to put her down. She had no idea when she had become so famous. Under the expectant and worshipful gazes of so many people, she really felt embarrassed. To continue acting as her little white lotus, nestling in Dmo Xian's arms. After all, her title was the title of such a rough man. Heroine, hero, Yi Qing Luo wiped off her sweat. When both her feet were on the ground, Yi Qing Luo straightened her red robe and cleared her throat. That great general, please get up first. The general's eyes were resolute as he clenched his fists and said, I beg Lady Yi and Lord Dizun to help the West Continent. Yi Qing Luo sighed, and with a wave of her sleeves, an invisible profound energy stirred up a breeze, forcefully supporting the great general up. Since we're here, it means that we're willing to help South Water Continent. The general's eyes reddened and he gripped his weapon tightly. Since Lady Yi and Lord Dizun are willing to help, South Tide Continent definitely has hope. Definitely, he had persisted for the past few days. Seeing the brothers around him getting fewer and fewer. The more the general persevered, the more despair he felt. Chapter 3106. He recalled that the sect master of the Gufeng sect had said that as long as they could hold on for a few days, the imperial palace would send people over to help. He waited and waited. Finally, he waited for them. Don't put too much hope in us. Yi Qing Luo looked at the Grand General, whose eyes were turning red as her lips curled upwards, and gave a faint smile. But, we will try our best. Thank you. Thank you, Imperial Palace, for being willing to lend a helping hand. Chow, can't thank you enough. After this matter is over, I am willing to do anything for the Imperial Palace to repay the Imperial Palace for saving my life. The general knelt on the ground once again, and his voice was sonorous and powerful. The soldiers also cupped their fists and knelt on one knee, saying in unison, Thank you, Imperial Palace, for lending a hand. Yi Qing Luo raised her hand and waved, indicating for them to get up. There's no need for you to thank the Imperial Palace, and there's no need for the great general to work like a cow or horse to repay you. The reason why the Emperor Palace acted was because they had reached an agreement with your sect master. A deal? The general was taken aback. He couldn't figure out what kind of deal it was that could move the Imperial Palace and make the Dizun personally take action. Yi Qing Luo smiled lightly. Yes, this is the deal between the Imperial Palace and Gufeng sect's patriarch. No matter what your motive is, the fact that the Imperial Palace is willing to lend a hand at this critical moment is the benefactor of our Wind Valley sect. The general said solemnly. The soldiers said in unison, That's right. Thank you, Imperial Palace, for lending a helping hand. TSK. I was wondering why you bastards suddenly became so brave. It turns out that help has arrived. Suddenly, a mocking voice sounded from below the city. Suddenly, a huge pressure surged in the surroundings. When the soldiers, who were still rejoicing, heard this voice, their expressions immediately darkened. The general suddenly stood up from the ground. His hand that was holding his weapon trembled continuously. His muscles were tense as if he was suppressing some sort of emotion. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes slightly as she held on to Dmo Xian's arm and walked to the front of the city. Unknowingly, hundreds of gigantic magical beasts had surrounded them. There were also disciples dressed in the uniform of the Palace of Darkness, as well as stiff and expressionless corpses. Yi Qing Luo surveyed the surroundings. He estimated that there were about 100 disciples from the Palace of Darkness. There were nearly 50 undead puppets. But, he could tell, These nearly 50 undead corpse puppets were not the half-finished products that he had seen for the first time. Instead, it was a defective product from when the Fox Saint technique had led them to invade the Meow tribe. Defective products were much easier to deal with than semi-finished products. At the very least, in terms of mental strength, the three guardians, Ayu, Ale, and Afong, were stronger than defective goods. Therefore, they didn't need any special weapons to kill those undead corpse puppets. Yiqing Luo's gaze swept around as she was thinking of countermeasures. His line of sight suddenly locked onto a figure. When he saw the man's face clearly, Yiqing Luo's expression congealed. "It's you?" That person was dressed in a navy blue brocade robe. He was a middle-aged man in his 30s or 40s. He was very handsome and had the charm of a playboy. He stood in the middle of the palace of gloomy darkness. His posture was relaxed, and there was even a smirk at the corner of his mouth. Yiqing Luo had met this person before. However, he had only seen it once. He didn't have a deep impression of her. The reason why she remembered him, or was it because of a certain someone? "Student Yiqing Luo, I didn't expect you to still remember me." That man laughed softly. "It's my honor." Chapter 3107. Yiqing Luo's face was full of ridicule. The dignified Elephant Saint technique has now become a scapegoat for the Palace of Darkness. Elephant Saint technique's expression changed slightly, but his lips quickly curled into a playboy smile. After all, student Yiqing Luo was so ruthless towards the dark forces. If the dark forces wanted to survive, they could only seek a backer. He paused for a moment and chuckled. "Everyone wants to live, the dark forces are no exception. Taking orders from the Palace of Darkness, working for the Palace of Darkness, becoming a scapegoat for the Palace of Darkness, this kind of ignoble existence really suits your character of hiding in the dark corners." Yiqing Luo ridiculed them without any restraint. Xiang Xingfa clicked his tongue as he stroked his chin. "I've always heard my companions talk about how sharp your tongue is and how powerful you are. Today I've met you, you indeed live up to your reputation. No wonder you're the one who caused the dark forces to be unable to make a comeback, student Yiqing Luo." This sarcastic emphasis made Yiqing Luo extremely unhappy when she heard it. "Student Yiqing Luo, I'm very curious. How did you know my identity?" Elephant Saint technique raised his brows. "All along, it's always Old Wolf, that fellow showing his face outside. You should have never seen me before." "Because of Si Yen Mu." Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes. "You think you've concealed it very well, but Si Yen Mu's profound yin chi can't be concealed." Elephant Saint technique clapped his hands. "Not only do you know my identity, you also know about my relationship with Mu Mu. Not bad, not bad. You're indeed smart." "I'm not interested in your relationship." Yiqing Luo's expression was indifferent. "That's right, this is all in the past." Elephant Saint technique nodded in agreement. "This is not the Heavenly Academy. I'm not the Dark Forces Saint technique. I'm now just a lackey of the Palace of Darkness. I have to follow the mission assigned by the Palace of Darkness." Yiqing Luo's brows knitted tightly. Her squinted eyes were suffused with a faint chill. This Elephant Saint technique and Wolf Saint technique were completely different types of people. If it was Wolf Saint technique, Wolf Saint technique was already enraged by her sarcastic words earlier. But, not only was Elephant Saint technique still in a peaceful mood, he could even laugh at himself calmly. It could be seen that his psychological quality was extremely strong. Such a person was even more difficult to deal with. "Student Yiqing Luo, I didn't expect that. You would actually help South Water Continent." Xiang Xingfa looked curiously at the general standing beside Yiqing Luo. "Since when has the Imperial Palace been so kind?" Yiqing Luo replied, "Compared to the Palace of Darkness and you bunch of lackeys, I like the South Continent more, so naturally I will help the South Continent." Xiang Xingfa shook his head helplessly. "What a pity. I thought we could take down Valley Wind City today. Looks like we'll have to spend some more time. I really want to continue reminiscing with you, but..." Valley Wind City has yet to be conquered. I am pressed for time, so I can only slowly reminisce in the future. His words fell. Xiang Xingfa pretended to be casual as he smiled. His fingers gently brushed the hair on his forehead. He pretended to be suave and threw a coquettish wink at Yi Qing Luo. Just as she cast a flirtatious glance, Xiang Xingfa's frivolous face suddenly turned extremely sinister, and his voice turned gloomy. Attack the city. He gave the order. A sharp and intimidating beast's roar and birds' cries instantly resounded through the entire sky. The Palace of Darkness disciples raised their arms and clamored loudly. Chapter 3108. Damn it. The general's vision fell onto the corpse puppets and his face was filled with shock. Not good. Miss Yi, those monsters, you must be careful. They are all impenetrable by water and fire. When the soldiers saw the corpse puppets, their faces revealed an astonished expression. They weren't willing to boost others' morale and diminish their own prestige. But during this period of time, the corpse puppets had brought them fear and bloodiness, which made their bodies instinctively produce fear. To them, the corpse puppets were their nightmare. As compared to thousands of troops and horses, it was even more terrifying. No worries. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as she gazed at the magical beasts and Nether Palace's disciples pouncing over, and those stiff but extremely fast corpse puppets. Just help me take care of this friend of mine. Yi Qing Luo glanced sideways as she looked at Zhu Wu Xian's direction. Leave the rest to us. The soldiers looked at Zhu Wu Xian and looked at the bottom of the city, at the clamoring crowd from Nether Palace. They were slightly hesitant. Those monsters are really scary, totally able to fight against 100. Adding on so many Nether Palace's disciples and flying beasts, the few of you really don't need our help? The general's expression was solemn. We've already sent out an emergency signal to Gu Feng's sect and they will immediately send people over to support us. And a few days ago, the disciples from the Imperial Palace will also rush over. After the general finished his words, he raised his head and looked at Dmo Xian and Yi Qing Luo. Let's face the enemy together and drag the time. As long as the reinforcements rush over, we will definitely be able to defend Valley Wind City. You've been fighting for such a long time and your stamina can't keep up. Even if you force yourself to fight, you're merely using your own life to drag that short moment of time. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were calm as she fixed her gaze on the general. I believe Grand General also doesn't want to see your own brothers sacrificing themselves in vain. The general's expression sunk as he clenched his fists tightly, but no buts. Yi Qing Luo shot her vision towards the bottom of the city, at the magical beasts which had already started to attack Valley Wind City. Help me take care of that friend of mine, that's the best repayment. Yi Qing Luo left this sentence behind. With a leap, she was already on top of the city wall. With a flick of her palm, a devouring flame fan appeared at her fingertips. Then, she flew down. Her red robe was burning with the most brilliant light. With a flick of her wrist, the feather fan opened up, and an endless amount of profound energy gathered on the feather fan, transforming into numerous wind blades that slashed downwards. That wind blade was stained with this seductive red glow. They were like sharp blades that cut through everything around them. Wherever the wind blades went, the burly and strong magical beasts fell to the ground one by one without any warning. It even crushed many disciples of the Palace of Darkness to death. The magical beast collapsed. The wind blades slashed towards the disciples of the Palace of Darkness. A bloody path was carved out. Screech! Yi Qing Luo's feet had just landed at the bottom of the city wall when the sky was filled with a patch of darkness, suddenly charging down in unison. Sharp cries sounded as though it was going to pierce through one's eardrums, as it rang in succession. One after another huge flying beasts flapped their wings, setting off a violent gale, sweeping up the sand on the ground, rolling like clouds as sand and stones flew. Yi Qing Luo's brows rose as she calmly looked at the hundreds of flying beasts charging towards her. Chapter 3109. Hundreds of flying beasts were bent on seeking revenge for their companions. Each and every one of them revealed an ominous glint in their eyes as they opened their mouths. These flying beasts' mouths were actually filled with terrifying sharp teeth. And they kept on giving out terrifying sharp cries. The murderous aura filled the sky as it entangled with the flying sand and pebbles. In the haze, the young lady's fiery figure was faintly discernible. The flying beast's speed was extremely fast and the young lady apparently had no intention to evade. The soldiers' eyes were all opened wide as they kept shouting for Yiqing Luo to quickly evade. But their voices had just been shouted out. The sky full of flying beasts was about to close in on Yiqing Luo. Bam! Just as everyone was trembling in fear. Suddenly, a thunderous explosion exploded in the air. A majestic profound energy was like a rolling wave as it surged forward. In an instant, it enveloped the entire battlefield. The moment the hundreds of flying beasts swooped down, Lin Fan's eyes widened. As though they had crashed into something. Each of the flying beasts gave out a sharp ear-piercing cry, which was totally different from the previous threats and warnings. If one listened carefully, it sounded extremely like a cry for help and pain. But in an instant, while the flying beasts were screaming miserably. In the sky, one after another huge flying beasts kept falling. It was totally in an instant. Earlier those hundreds of flying beasts which had charged downwards towards Yiqing Luo, none of them survived. The surrounding flying sand was still lingering and rolling. The air waves were still rolling. But in the haze, everyone could still see clearly. Overlord, Overlord. Everyone's expression congealed instantly. The tall and imposing figure standing in front of Yiqing Luo, wasn't that Dmo Xian? His purple robe was fluttering due to the strong wind and his jet black hair was also flying along with the wind, which set off that peerless face of his, making him look like a banished immortal. He slowly retracted his right hand. The surrounding profound energy, along with his action, gradually stopped. Without the strong wind waves, it lingered in the air. The surrounding flying sand and pebbles also stopped. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Heavens! The Overlord only used one hand and annihilated hundreds of flying beasts in minutes? This was simply too powerful. Just one hand. From the looks of it, it seemed as though he didn't use any profound energy at all and he had easily suppressed those birds. It was simply too cool. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo's pink lips perked up as she hugged Dmo Xian's arm with one hand. I knew you would block in front of me. Dmo Xian glanced sideways slightly, his eyes filled with gentleness and pampering. You've just recuperated, you can play and enjoy yourself. Don't tire yourself out. Yiqing Luo smiled as she nodded. Don't worry about me, these dregs will at most let me warm up. Dmo Xian rubbed her head affectionately. The two of them looked at each other and smiled warmly. In the eyes of the people from the Palace of Darkness, their sweet talk was blatant disdain and mockery. Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian didn't intentionally lower their voices when they spoke earlier. Basically, everyone present heard the conversation between the two of them. This blatant disdain and disdainful attitude infuriated the people of Dark Nether Palace. Don't think that just because the Overlord is here, you can win. Valley Wind City will definitely belong to us Palace of Darkness. Right. We, the people from Palace of Darkness, are not afraid of the Overlord at all. Chapter 31:10. How could they not be afraid of Dmo Xian, this mysterious and powerful existence? But they could only use their words to boost their courage and brainwash themselves. Only in this way could they not escape from stage fright. Most importantly, they still had Nether Palace's secret weapon, so they had nothing to be afraid of. Even if it was the Overlord. In front of Nether Palace's secret weapon, they would definitely be defeated. Nether Palace's disciples' morale had indeed risen greatly amidst their curses. Xiang Shengfe squinted his eyes as he rubbed his chin. He wanted to see what kind of ability this Yiqing Luo, who was mentioned by the other saint technique several times and even the higher-ups in Nether Palace were paying close attention to, had Yi Qing Luo really thought that with the Overlord's support, she could rely on the Overlord to deal with thousands of troops and horses? Heh. So what if the Overlord could really fight 1 against 1,000? He could continue to summon the magical beasts. He could continue to send that bunch of cannon fodder to their deaths. He could continue to make use of the undead puppets to attack Valley Wind City. So what if Dmo Xian was powerful? Facing this kind of continuous war, how long could he last? Xiang Sheng Fa scoffed lightly as his eyes were filled with disdain. Everyone in Nether Palace laughed when they saw Xiang Sheng Fa. They understood that their curses and ridicule towards Dmo Xian made leader Xiang extremely happy. Hence they took a deep breath and suppressed the fear towards Dmo Xian as they started cursing once again. What Overlord? The Imperial Palace that had been established for so many years was overtaken by the Palace of Darkness in just a few months. You can't even protect the Imperial Palace that belongs to you, and you still have the nerve to let others call you Lord Dizun? I think you're just a dog. Nether Palace is the #1 palace in Nirvana Realm. The Imperial Palace will soon follow that bullshit Overlord. Overlord? Pooey. Do you really think you're somebody? Every time the people from the Palace of Darkness who were cursing opened their mouths to say a few words, they would feel a huge impact on their faces. Following that, their faces felt as if they had been slapped hard in the face. They spat out mouthfuls of blood, and even their teeth fell out. Everyone from the Palace of Gloomy Darkness was in so much pain that their eyes were burning. They glared in the direction of the attack. Yi Qing Luo waved the glower flame fan. The coquettish red glow flickered continuously. Every time it flashed, one could clearly see a streak of light darting out. He only headed in the direction of the people from the Palace of Darkness. It hurts. Help. More cries of pain and cries for help rang out. His speed was fast and his strength was ruthless. It caused the rage of the people from the Dark Abyss Palace to extinguish. Yi Qing Luo sneered, her fingertips moved and the glower flame fan opened up. In the air, ripples spread out one after another. Powerful energy gushed out from his body. It charged in the direction of the people from the Dark Abyss Palace like a tidal wave that covered them. Another wave of screams and the sound of tall and burly magical beasts falling to the ground resounded. Yi Qing Luo slowly kept her glower flame fan. She squinted her long and narrow eyes, reflecting an icy cold light. Bit by bit, she looked at the disciples of the Palace of Darkness who were screaming and covering their faces. Her voice was as cold as ice. Chapter 31:11. Yi Qing Luo stood in front of Dmo Xian as she slowly retracted her arm and raised her chin as her face was icy cold. The glower flame fan on her fingertips swayed gently. Everyone from the secluded palace spat out blood as their teeth flew out as they cried out in pain. Then, he looked at the flame-like red light that moved from time to time. They felt that their faces were in even more pain and so were their teeth. Yi Qing Luo's cold eyes swept past that group of people and on seeing their terrified expressions, her pink lips curled upward slightly. She couldn't even bear to bully her boyfriend. This bunch of trash were even fit to insult her man? You bunch of trash. Why are you afraid of a young lass like her? Attack for me. Kill them. Take down Valley Wind City. Xiang Sheng Fa saw that the situation had turned around and his face turned green as he gritted his teeth and bellowed. The secluded palace's disciples clenched their weapons tightly as they wanted to charge forward. But the moment they met Yi Qing Luo's smiling gaze and the red profound glow in her hands, their legs turned into jelly. Their faces hurt and their teeth hurt even more. A bunch of trash. Just a young lass taking the chance to sneak an attack and all of you are so scared. Do you still look like secluded palace's disciples? If you don't want to stay in secluded palace and are afraid of death, then scram for me now. Secluded palace doesn't need you bunch of cowardly trash. Xiang Sheng Fa unleashed his profound energy as his voice echoed throughout the battlefield. Secluded palace's disciples exchanged glances as they tried to find an answer from each other's eyes. The main reason why they joined secluded palace. Not only because secluded palace's benefits were good. Most importantly, it was because secluded palace had the fastest way to raise their profound energy in the shortest time possible. This increase in profound energy was permanent. Towards their thirst for power, how could they bear to leave? Moreover, secluded palace's development was obviously much more awesome than the imperial palace. They followed secluded palace to conquer the world. In the future, they would be the #1 palace's disciples. Just walking on the road would bring along the wind. Most importantly, after they joined secluded palace, they had done so many atrocious things. If he lost the protection of the Abyss Palace, they would definitely be captured by those small powers that the dark secluded palace had wiped out and used as tools to vent their anger. Kill. Capture Valley Wind City. Let the people of the Imperial Palace see the power of our Palace of Gloomy Darkness. Yes. Kill. We have a secret weapon, why should we be afraid of them? She was just a silly little girl. Charge. Capture Valley Wind City and capture the people of the Imperial Palace alive. The Palace of Darkness disciples didn't want to be abandoned by the Palace of Darkness and were anxious to prove themselves. Looking at the human wave tactic which was used once again, as a group of magical beasts and secluded Darkness Palace's disciples flocked towards them, Yiqing Luo's lips twitched in disdain as she sneered. It just so happens that I'm done warming up. Now I can seriously loosen my muscles and bones. Yiqing Luo twisted her neck, waved her glower flame fan and was about to step forward. All of a sudden, an arm crossed her waist and pulled her into his embrace. Ah Xian, Yiqing Luo fell into his arms and glanced sideways at him. What's the matter? Dmo Xian didn't reply her. Instead he held her waist as his vision shot towards the other corner of the city wall as his voice was deep and calm. How much longer do you guys intend to watch the show for? You guys? Yiqing Luo was stunned. Chapter 31:12. Overlord, can't you let us watch a little longer? Aren't we doing this to let Qing Luo stretch her muscles and bones? Why did you call us out so early? 10 over figures walked out from the corner of the city walls. Those 10 over students were dressed in green and white robes, and on the left chest area, there was an eye-catching Xian word embroidered with gold thread. When Yiqing Luo's vision met them, her eyes instantly lit up. Xiao Yi, Jin Zi, Shadow, Xiao Yu, Roa Pan, you, why are you all here? These 10 over people in front of her. Weren't they Heavenly Academy, Devil Classes students? Ever since she left the West Continent to search for the goo poison for Long Yunzhan. Other than Yan Xiao Yi and Xiao Jin, she had not seen those brothers in Devil class for a long time. Madam Qing Luo. Qing Luo. The few of them in Devil class all rushed forward. Yiqing Luo patted Dmo Xian's hand which was on her waist. Feeling the man intentionally increasing his strength, he tightened his grip on her waist before releasing her. This little act of throwing a tantrum made Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laugh out loud. She held on to Dmo Xian's arm which was about to retract. She turned around, stood on her tiptoes, and planted a soothing kiss on his chin. Following that, she then released Dmo Xian and jogged towards the direction of her brothers. We haven't met for such a long time and Madam Qing Luo is showing off her affection the minute she sees us. Ni Roapan hugged Yiqing Luo as his tone was filled with excitement and joy. Yiqing Luo smiled as she hugged everyone, her brows were filled with smiles. Those people from secluded palace who were launching their attacks were all stunned on the spot because of the sudden appearance of 10 over people. Until those 10 over people seemed as though they didn't notice the danger in front of them as they were still smiling happily. Everyone from secluded palace then regained their senses. You bunch of brats, are you looking down on our secluded palace? Pft, ha ha ha. I thought it was the Imperial Palace's reinforcements. I didn't expect. It's just a bunch of kids who haven't even grown out their hair. Did you think this is a house or a game? You bunch of students who have yet to graduate, running onto the battlefield, are you looking to die? The people of Gloomy Palace and the others were already filled with resentment. These people were obviously the students of the Heavenly Academy. Each of them looked to be about 16 or 17 years old. But just as they were about to attack aggressively, Yi Zichen suddenly stopped, completely ignoring their existence. This was simply looking down on them. The people from Gloomy Palace didn't hesitate and rushed up. Yi Qing Luo's brows rose as she looked at the people from secluded Darkness Palace who were charging towards her, as she gave a smile which didn't look like a smile. Brothers, looks like now isn't the time to reminisce about the past. Everyone in Devil class turned their faces towards the front. It's been a long time since we last met. Let me see your recent growth. The corners of Yi Qing Luo's lips curled up as she smiled devilishly. As long as I see progress, I will reward you. Reward? Everyone's eyes lit up. Rewards and whatnot, especially Yi Qing Luo's reward, that was absolutely helpful to them. As a result, a group of released animals, he had completely released his nature. Howling, he picked up his weapon and rushed forward. Chapter 31:13. Dmo Xian raised his brows as he looked at the young lady's smiling face. His lips curled as he stretched out his hand and held her little hand. Let's go. Dmo Xian and Yi Qing Luo also rushed up to join the battle. Ah Feng, Ah Yu, and Ah Lei, the three guardians, also rushed up to protect their master. Really don't. The Grand General wanted to persuade Yi Qing Luo and the rest to wait for the reinforcements. But in front of him, that group of people were already entangled with the people from Nether Palace. The Grand General's brows creased tightly as he stared anxiously at those 10 over people. His heart was filled with worry and conflict. Initially, there was only the Overlord and the other 5 to go against the thousands of troops from Nether Palace and those 10 over undefeatable undead puppets. They were already very worried. Later on, they added another 10 over people. But those 10 over people were all young lads and young ladies. They looked like 16 to 17 years old. These young lads, could they really hang on till the reinforcements arrived? Move aside. Suddenly an icy cold voice was heard from his back. That voice was like ice as it penetrated into his eardrums. It was so cold that the Grand General shivered. Master, you can't go over. The Grand General turned his head back and saw the red-robed young man walking towards the direction of the battlefield. He remembered Yi Qing Luo's instructions as he hurriedly stretched out his hand to stop him. Zhu Wu Xian's brows creased slightly as his eyes were filled with a sliver of anger. Move aside. Master, have you forgotten what Miss Yi said? You can't go over. The Grand General was shocked by his gaze as he broke out in cold sweat, but he still braced himself to stop him. Zhu Wu Xian was preparing to take a step and pass the Grand General. Just when he heard this sentence, his footsteps slowly shifted back. Although the Grand General was adept in leading troops into battles, but to be able to sit in this position and have a bunch of trusted soldiers. Naturally, he wasn't someone who didn't know how to read people's expressions. His gaze shot towards the direction of the battlefield and quickly looked at Zhu Wu Xian as he roughly understood something. He continued to brace himself. Master, Miss Yi asked you to stay here because she's worried about you. If you insist on going over, Miss Yi might be distracted because she's worried about you. On the battlefield, once you're distracted, there's a possibility of getting injured. Zhu Wu Xian's eyes instantly froze. The expression on his face became darker and more terrifying. However, he was no longer in the mood to go back to the battlefield. Instead, he clenched his fists and returned to his previous position. The general wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and heaved a sigh of relief. Zhu Wu Xian's face was cold. and his eyes seemed to be covered in a layer of frost as he stared at the battlefield. It was a figure dressed in a fiery red robe. Beside the young lady, Dmo Xian did not leave her by a single step. Every time he defeated the enemy in front of him, the two of them would look at each other and smile. This scene made Zhu Wuxin feel the sharp pain of his heart being cut by a sharp blade again. He pressed a hand to his heart. The cold eyes that stared at Yiqing Luo's direction became colder and colder. Ever since the end of the God class's training, the brothers of the Devil class had not experienced a hearty battle. Even if he occasionally left the academy to accept missions from mercenary groups, they all felt that they had not enjoyed themselves to the fullest. Now, they were facing a large group of magical beasts, flying beasts, disciples of the Dark Palace. They were like animals that were starving and thirsty. They totally didn't need to care about their lives or anything. Each and every one of them killed to their heart's content. Just 10 over Devil class students, plus 3 Imperial Palace guardians. Chapter 31:14. Not to mention that Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo had also made their moves under the hands of a bunch of animals. Even if the secluded palace had thousands of men and horses, they had all turned into animals to prove their own growth. In Yiqing Luo's words, that was leveling up experience. The secluded palace's disciples had their morale plummeted after being brutally beaten by the animals. One by one, they wailed and ran away. How would they dare to fight against that bunch of animals? Xiang Shengfa was also stunned by this scene. No one had expected this. Just a dozen of young men and they were able to carve out a bloody path in the hands of countless beasts and secluded palace's disciples. No. It wasn't just a bloody path. It was a massacre on the secluded palace's side. Xiang Shengfa's expression congealed as his eyes were filled with murderous intent. He glanced at the undead puppets behind him and looked at the flying beasts and magical beasts which had already been killed by 2/3. Xiang Shengfa. Where are you looking at? Suddenly, he heard a young lady's mocking voice. Xiang Shengfa felt a chilly wind rushing towards him. He swiftly took a step back. Bam! His face seemed to have crashed into a barrier. The sound of the crash was extremely crisp. It was like a slap on his face. Tisk, is Holy Art Elephant trying to beg for mercy from me? The young girl beside him laughed mockingly. Xiang Shengfa turned his head and saw the young lady waving her palm and smiling at him. Her eyes were filled with ridicule. Xiang Shengfa covered his face. His expression turned extremely ugly. What could be more shameful than being slapped in the face without even knowing it? The speed of the slap was so fast. And the presence was concealed so well. He didn't even notice that Yiqing Luo was already close to him. Xiang Shengfa's gaze was sinister as though he wanted to strangle Yiqing Luo to death. Facing such a gaze, Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she laughed lightly. Why is Xiang Shengfa showing such a shocked expression? Could it be that the slap just now wasn't for me to slap you, but because you accidentally bumped into my palm? As she said that, she blinked innocently. Her long, curly eyelashes fluttered. This made the young girl's gorgeous face look even more pure and harmless. The look in Xiang Shengfa's eyes grew fiercer. Yiqing Luo giggled as she leaned slightly towards his direction. Xiang Shengfa subconsciously took a step back. Yiqing Luo smiled even more charmingly. Xiang Shengfa, don't be angry, after all. I am also a headache for those few brothers of yours, you should at least give me some face, don't think that I am so weak. She giggled. The brighter the smile. Xiang Shengfa's face darkened. Yiqing Luo was very satisfied with the expression of Saint Law at this moment. She smiled brightly. It was so bright that it almost hurt Sacred Law Elephant's eyes. That was the moment Xiang Sheng closed his eyes. Yiqing Luo suddenly stretched out her hand and her 5 fingers quickly grabbed Great Elephant Saint Technique's collar. Then, he moved his fingers. A silver thread was released from the ghastly flame fan and quickly wrapped around the elephant saint technique. Xiangsheng Fa only felt a piercing pain on his skin as he opened his eyes with a gasp of cold air. He saw that the robe on his arms had been cut by the sharp silver thread. The silver thread, which was as fine as a strand of hair, stuck to his arm. It was a cold touch, mixed with the piercing pain of the silver thread cutting his skin. Chapter 31:15. Don't worry, I will go easy on you. Yiqing Luo smiled evilly. I have no choice. To catch the ringleader first, I can only catch you first. Xiangsheng Fa's handsome face was extremely gloomy. His eyes turned cold as a cold glint appeared. Originally, I wanted to let you die a little easier. He opened his mouth and his voice was filled with uncontrollable anger and coldness. Since you insist on seeking death, then don't blame me for not knowing how to have tender feelings for the fairer sex. Just as his voice fell, Yiqing Luo felt a gust of yin qi bursting out from Xiangsheng Fa's body. Immediately, the surrounding air was condensed with a layer of frosty air. Yiqing Luo's pupils widened as she swiftly loosened her grip on Xiangsheng Fa. Following that, her figure was like an afterimage as she retreated swiftly. Bam! A deafening explosion was heard from the place where Yiqing Luo was standing earlier. After she stabilized her footsteps, she squinted her eyes as she looked at the lingering qi in the sky. There was a slight change in her expression. Earlier, if she was one step slower, there was a possibility she would have been hit directly on the top of her head by that explosion. But luckily, at the moment she retreated, the glower flame fan swiftly closed up and fastened the silver thread tightly. She retracted the silver thread in her hand, trying to pull Xiangsheng Fa back. But this pull, the silver thread was easily pulled over. The other end of the silver thread was empty. Where was Xiangsheng Fa? Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as she quickly kept the silver thread back into the glower flame fan. Then she released her perception as she looked towards the direction of the qi flow alertly. Xiangsheng Fa actually broke free from the restraint of her silver thread. She had just kept the silver thread and was still shocked that Xiangsheng Fa broke free from the silver thread. Suddenly, her ears twitched sensitively. Her eyes stared intently at the direction of Xiangsheng Fa. Why did it seem like she heard a very messy sound? And it was mixed with an extremely strong murderous intent. And the yin qi was getting heavier and heavier, and a very pungent and unpleasant smell. What was going on? Yiqing Luo, you and your bunch of useless brothers will not be able to return. Xiangsheng Fa roared furiously in the midst of the qi flow. The strong qi gradually dissipated. Everything in front of him became much clearer. When Yiqing Luo saw this scene, she finally understood the reason why she had so many strange feelings just now. Dozens of undead puppets stood in front of Xiangsheng Fa. Behind Xiangsheng Fa were dozens of neatly lined corpse puppets. The pungent smell came from the undead corpse puppets. It smelled like rotting corpses. It also smelled like some kind of potion. The stench was indescribable. An endless amount of yin qi was emitted from the corpse puppet's body. It's a monster, a monster. The Palace of Darkness is going to use monsters, be careful. These people were all monsters. They are all monsters. On the city wall, the soldiers who had been paying attention to the situation shouted at the top of their lungs when they saw the undead corpse puppets surrounding the elephant saint technique. After Yiqing Luo saw those dead corpse puppets, her expression turned grave. From the moment the Palace of Darkness disciples controlled the beasts to attack Valley Wind City, these nearly 50 dead corpse puppets were just standing not far away from Xiangsheng Fa, like a decoration of the terracotta army. Apparently, Xiangsheng Fa had no intention to control the dead corpse puppets to attack Valley Wind sect right from the start. Chapter 31:16. If right from the start, Xiangsheng Fa had let the undead puppets join the battle, The Palace of Darkness's loss might not be that huge. Undead puppets were Palace of Darkness's tools. Xiangsheng Fa probably wouldn't be willing to use Palace of Darkness's tools to attack her. Unless these were Palace of Darkness's tools, which affected him. So he didn't let the undead puppets deal with them. Now, he had no choice but to control the undead puppets to protect him. That meant to say, to control the undead puppets, there was a certain price to pay. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes slightly as she sized up Xiangsheng Fa from top to bottom. But no matter how she looked, she couldn't tell what was different about Xiangsheng Fa. These are the undead puppets you were talking about? Ni Rupan stared blankly at the stiff corpses that were standing straight and asked in astonishment. After Yan Xiaoyi and Xiao Jin returned to the Heavenly Academy. Then they told Devil Class about the Miao Tribe's matter. Towards the undead puppets, Devil Class's students felt that it was a novelty. Looks like it's not as powerful as imagined. Lu Xiaoyu tilted her head as she blinked her eyes, staring at those undead puppets. Devil Class's students nodded their heads in agreement. Don't let your guard down. Their terror is not in their outer appearance, but they are impenetrable, impervious to fire and water. Even if their 4 limbs are chopped off, they will still be able to continue fighting. Xiao Jin reminded in a deep voice, so, if you meet them, you must be careful. Yes. Devil Class's students replied in unison as they concentrated their attention and looked towards the direction of the undead puppets. It's out. It's out. Palace of Darkness's strongest weapon is out. An invincible and all-conquering weapon. Palace of Darkness will definitely win this time round without any pressure. Palace of Darkness's disciples who were still alive saw the undead puppets being activated. The terror and fear on their faces were all replaced by ecstasy. Xiang Shengfa sneered. He opened his arms wide. Insolent laughter. As though he had completely forgotten about the awkwardness of being caught by Yiqing Luo earlier. His sinister eyes stared deadly at Yiqing Luo. The corner of his mouth was still curled up in his symbolic smirk. Yiqing Luo, it's not too late to beg for mercy. His sinister smile was so cold that it made people shiver. Especially those 10 over corpses surrounding him. Upon hearing his voice, all of them started to move in unison towards Yiqing Luo's direction. The dozens of corpse puppets moved in unison, as if they were duplicates. There were no flaws at all. Devil Class's 10 over students, after forcing the wave of magical beasts to retreat, speedily crowded towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Because of the corpse puppets. The disciples of Secluded Darkness Palace shouted excitedly. For a while, no one continued to attack. In their eyes. Once the corpse puppets were dispatched. Those little brats who haven't even grown their hair will all become corpses. Qing Luo, what should we do? It's this group of monsters again. Yan Xiaoyi gripped the black sickle blade tightly, her expression solemn. Yiqing Luo's lips curled. Don't panic, let them continue showing off. When they think that they're standing at the peak, let them fall into hell, that's more interesting. You have a way to deal with this group of monsters? Xiao Jin understood the meaning in her words. Yan Xiaoyi's eyes shone. That's right, isn't the Overlord able to hang this group of monsters up in minutes? If he makes a move, there's basically no problem. Chapter 31:17. What? Us? Yan Xiaoyi's eyes widened as she suddenly took a step back. You must be joking. How could we possibly be that bunch of monsters' opponents? The 10 over Devil Class students looked at the corpse puppets and then looked at Yiqing Luo. After hesitating for a moment, Lu Xiaoyu pursed her lips and opened her mouth. I can try. The other 10 over students exchanged glances and immediately looked at Yiqing Luo resolutely. We're willing to go. The few of you haven't seen with your own eyes how powerful the corpse puppets are and don't know what's so perverted about them. Yan Xiaoyi pressed her forehead as her head ached. Our strength, totally can't hurt the corpse puppets. She waved her own black sickle blade and added another sentence, even my black sickle blade has no way to hurt the corpse puppets. Devil class's few people looked at each other again. They clenched their fists tightly, and although their expressions were slightly moved by Yan Xiaoyi's words, but they still licked their lips as they firmly shook their heads. Lu Xiaoyu held Yan Xiaoyi's hand as she gave her a mischievous smile. We indeed don't know how powerful the corpse puppets are, but we believe in Qing Luo. Right, we believe in Qing Luo, madam. Devil class's students all spoke in unison. Yan Xiaoyi was stunned as she immediately shut her eyes. I'm used to Qing Luo being able to create miracles on her own, but I forgot that she can also make the people around her to create miracles. Alright, don't think so much. Qing Luo naturally has her reasons for asking us to go up. Lu Xiaoyu hooked Yan Xiaoyi's shoulder, but, later on, we still need you to take the lead. After all, this is our first time crossing hands with this bunch of monsters. Yan Xiaoyi. Comforting her, was she planning on this? Looking at the 10 over devil class's students bustling with noise and laughter. Yi Qing Luo's lips unknowingly curled into an arc. The feeling of having such a group of brothers by her side was really good. Their unconditional trust in her also made her feel exceptionally warm. She smiled till her eyes were curved as her eyes were filled with warmth. Suddenly, a warm aura enveloped her from behind. Her delicate body was pulled into a broad chest. Yi Qing Luo shut her eyes as she leaned on his body. Ah Xian, the brothers trust me so much, so. Those dead corpses, you can't lay your hands on them. Didn't you ask me to keep a close eye on the corpse puppets? Dmo Xian chuckled beside her ear. Yi Qing Luo turned around and hugged his waist, her little head rubbed against his chest. Previously, I didn't know that all the brothers were here, so I wanted to end the battle quickly. She rubbed against him and raised her little chin, beaming as she looked into Dmo Xian's eyes. I missed the feeling of fighting with my brothers. I can also use them as an experiment. Dmo Xian raised his hand and caressed her hair. I can't do anything to you. His tone was filled with love. Their brotherhood, and the warmth of pink bubbles. It was a blatant slap in the face of the people from the Palace of Darkness. It had come to this. How could they still be in the mood to talk about brotherhood and love? Did they really not put the Palace of Darkness in their eyes? They really didn't understand how powerful their Palace of Darkness's secret weapon was? Xiang Shengfei also felt waves of pain on his face. Chapter 31:18. Heavy Reward? These two words caused an uproar among the Palace of Darkness's disciples. Palace of Darkness's heavy reward was to give them a chance to raise their profound energy quickly. Once they got this heavy reward, in the Palace of Darkness where ability spoke, they would be able to get a good official position. Humans' greed was more important than anything else. In front of greed, fear and terror could be thrown to the back of one's mind. Because, if they won the bet, what was waiting for them was a glorious future. No one was willing to be below others. Everyone wanted to stand out and stand at the highest point. Palace of Darkness's disciples, under the thirst for power, their eyes were burning with a burning battle intent. I will not let you down. Go. Kill this bunch of brats who don't know their place. Palace of Darkness's disciples, on seeing the corpse puppet speedily charging towards Yi Qing Luo and the others' direction, also speedily attacked. In their eyes, Yi Qing Luo and the others had become the stepping stone to raise their ability. Momentarily, the sword light and shadow, magical beasts howled. The corpse puppets swept up a raging yin qi as they charged over. It was a ferocious attack. Under the city wall, those 10 over youngsters stood on the same spot, without any intention to evade. Oh no. Oh no. The great general on the city wall, nervously clutching the long spear in his hand, as he paced around anxiously. Why haven't the reinforcements arrived yet? If something really happens to them, how am I going to answer to Sovereign? How am I going to answer to the imperial palace? The great general heard the deafening, rumbling explosion below the city wall. All the muscles in his body tensed up at this moment. He shut his eyes tightly, as his mouth kept mumbling something. However, after the second explosion, Li Tianlan's body trembled. The great general finally couldn't take it anymore, as his eyes widened, as he raised the long spear in his hand. No way. How can I be like a good-for-nothing, hold up here, being protected by a bunch of kids? This is Three Springs City, it's my turf, I should protect it personally. The great general was so anxious that he burst out vulgarities. He dashed towards the city wall, as he was about to jump down. Brothers, let's protect us. His words were suddenly stuck in his throat. The great general's vision was fixated on the scene below the city wall. He couldn't believe his eyes. She is a very special woman. Suddenly, the youth's cold voice came from behind. However, there was a hint of amusement in his voice. Don't look at her like you look at an ordinary person. As long as she says it, she'll definitely be able to do it, the young man continued. The general turned around in a daze. He looked at Zhu Wuxin, who had a cold expression and a frosty look on his face. Zhu Wuxin's gaze was fixed on the beautiful figure below the city wall. There was an obvious tenderness in her eyes. The general turned his head in a daze and looked down at the city wall again. He had to acknowledge Zhu Wuxin's words. Really, one couldn't use ordinary people's eyes to look at Yiqing Luo. Perhaps, relying on these kids, Gufeng City could really be saved. Below the city wall, the disciples of the Palace of Darkness and the monsters seemed to be blocked by an invisible wall. They had no way to get within 5 steps of Yiqing Luo and the others. Each time the Dark Nether Palace disciples or the corpses and puppets wanted to charge over, they would be bounced back by the invisible wall. Chapter 31:19. The secluded palace's disciples who were repelled were dismembered into pieces, leaving only splattering blood on the ground. As for the corpse puppets, in the shortest time possible, they attacked once again with their broken bodies. But no matter how they charged over, that invisible wall had surrounded Yiqing Luo and the others from all directions, tightly and solidly. After 2 waves of attacks, Xiangxing Fa knew that this was a futile effort, letting that bunch of trash from the secluded palace die in vain. He raised his hand and stopped the 3rd wave of attacks from the secluded palace's disciples. His face was still as suave as before, but the deep meaning in his eyes was filled with a sinister and treacherous glint. His eyes were fixed on the golden boy and jade girl who were hugging each other. What? Overlord, are you afraid of our secluded palace's secret weapon? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as her lips curled evilly. Secret weapon? It can't even break my Xian's barrier, how can it be called a secret weapon? Conjuring a barrier requires a huge amount of mental power. Xiangxing Fa's face was gloomy as he spoke in a sinister tone. We can take a good look to see if the Overlord's mental power is higher or if our secluded palace's secret weapon has more endurance. Following that, he waved his arm. Secluded palace's disciples retreat. The corpse puppets continue to attack. Hearing Xiangxing Fa's words, Yiqing Luo's expression had a slight change. Her lips were curled into a smile, but a sliver of worry flashed past her eyes. Apparently, Xiangxing Fa's intention was to control the corpse puppets and use them to attack the barrier. No matter how strong Dmo Xian's mental power was, it couldn't be compared to the corpse puppets, which didn't know fatigue and couldn't die. When Dmo Xian's mental power was exhausted, Dmo Xian would definitely fall into a short period of weakness. By then, not only could he make use of the corpse puppets to capture the few of them in one fell swoop, at the same time, he could also capture Dmo Xian alive. Xiangxingfa had a good plan. Yiqing Luo's fingers on Dmo Xian's arm tightened slightly. She couldn't let Xiangxing Fa have his way. Xiangxing Fa's retreat order made the secluded palace's disciples extremely hesitant. Naturally, they were unwilling to retreat. The only way to obtain a handsome reward was to cooperate with the undead corpse puppets and take the heads. If he retreated, the undead puppets broke through the barrier. What if they couldn't make it in time to get the kill? TSK, it's really hard to raise a dog that isn't raised by oneself. Yiqing Luo gave a ridiculing smile. Xiangxing Fa, look at your position in secluded Darkness Palace, I really feel pity for you. You can't even order these little disciples around. Xiangxing Fa's face turned pale. The expressions of the disciples of the Palace of Darkness turned extremely ugly. No. Don't listen to this demoness nonsense. We are absolutely loyal to our captain. Demoness. Don't try to sow discord between us and Captain Elephant. Although that was what the disciples of the Palace of Darkness said, they still squeezed to the front. None of them had the intention to retreat. Xiangxing Fa's face turned even uglier. One more word and this leader will let you break Dmo Xian's barrier. The disciples of the secluded Darkness Palace turned pale with fright. The first two waves of disciples who attacked the barrier had all turned into a pool of blood, not even a piece of flesh was left. All of you get back here. Xiangxing Fa bellowed once again. They could hear the rage in Xiangxing Fa's tone. Chapter 31:20. Xiangxing Fa was so infuriated that he couldn't wait to kill Yiqing Luo and the rest. He didn't wait for the secluded palace's disciples to retreat to a safe zone as he directly controlled the puppets and charged over. And at this moment, just as Xiangxing Fa thought that Yiqing Luo and the rest were still hiding in the array barrier. But he saw Yiqing Luo pulling away Dmo Xian's hand on her waist as she took a step forward. The young lady's lips curled upwards, revealing an evil smile which made Xiangxing Fa feel uneasy. What was she trying to do? Why did she look so confident? What was she plotting? Could this array barrier be a smokescreen? Countless guesses flashed through Xiangxing Fa's mind. His heart inexplicably started to beat wildly with unease. Very quickly, Xiangxing Fa got his answer. The young lady's gaze was like a torch as it penetrated through the array barrier and the puppet's obstruction, as it fixed on him. She raised her brows as she gave a faint smile. The glint in her eyes seemed to be mocking his ignorance. Following that, he heard the young lady's sweet voice. Brothers, I'm very satisfied with your improvement. The young lady smiled faintly. These words were obviously meant for the devil class students behind her. However, her eyes were still fixed on him. Xiangxing Fa felt as though he was entangled by an icy cold poisonous snake. The kind that he couldn't avoid even if he wanted to. The reward that I promised you, take it well. The moment the young lady finished her words, she suddenly raised her hand. The ring with the red phoenix totem flashed brightly. Over 10 weapons were suspended in the air. Yiqing Luo's palm moved and the weapons quickly moved towards the brothers behind her. Those weapons were knives, swords, whips and spears. These were the weapons that the brothers were used to. They raised their hands and caught the weapons in front of them. Lu Xiaoyu's eyes shone as she waved the long sword in her hand. This weapon, don't tell me you personally refined it? Ni Ruopan also held the long sword tightly. Madam Qing Luo personally refined this weapon? I will definitely keep it well. The other students in Devil class also had their eyes sparkling brightly. That look of a crazy fangirl. It made Yiqing Luo's forehead drip with cold sweat. I didn't refine this. She coughed softly. It was refined by Tang Beiyuan, the hall master of the Imperial Palace's refining hall. I was just an assistant. Everyone's eyes sparkled as they cupped their fists in Tang Beiyuan's direction. Thank you, Hall Master Tang. No need. These are all ideas provided by your Qing Luo. As long as it's of help to you, that's good enough. Tang Beiyuan had never been thanked in such a serious manner. She felt a little unnatural and smiled awkwardly. Madam Qing Luo's idea? What kind of help? The few of them scratched their heads in confusion. A good weapon is helpful to all of us. Looking at everyone's puzzled expression, Yiqing Luo smiled lightly and raised her brows. The help that Bei Yuan mentioned, all of you will know very soon. She looked at Xiang Xingfa and said with a smile, Xiang Xingfa, you'll find out soon enough. After saying that, she raised her hand and pointed at the undead puppets that had crashed into the barrier. What do you think about these undead puppets? The devil class students looked at each other for a while. Chapter 31-21. They don't have blood. Mo Yuying's flat voice rang. Finally met someone who is even more inhuman than me. Although, it was still a flat voice without any fluctuations. But those who understood Mo Yuying could hear the excitement in her words. Devil class crowd. What was there to be excited about? That group of monsters that didn't look like humans was their enemy. Could it be? Mo Yuying had treated that group of monsters as her companions? Facing everyone's puzzled gazes, Mo Yuying looked at them blankly as she spoke in a flat tone, I'm human, they aren't. Phew. That's great. Lu Xiaoyu heaved a sigh of relief. I was really afraid that you would classify yourself as one of them. Mo Yuying stared blankly at Lu Xiaoyu. Her empty and lifeless eyes stared at Lu Xiaoyu, causing her hairs to stand on end. She hid behind a devil class student and shrunk back. Stop fooling around. Yan Xiaoyi kept the black sickle blade as she waved the long spear in her hand, trying to feel it. Qing Luo, can these weapons pay those monsters? Yiqing Luo raised her brows as she smiled but didn't say a word. Ni Ruopan leaned forward. Those monsters are really impenetrable. The Overlord's barrier only made them lose their arms and legs. If we directly slash at them, they won't die, right? Yiqing Luo mysteriously curled her lips as she shot a glance towards the group of dead puppets outside the barrier as she patted Ni Ruopan's shoulder. Won't you know after you try? Ni Ruopan was pushed to the side of the barrier by Yiqing Luo. Just as the four eyes met with the missing arms and legs, the red blooming flesh and the ghastly white bones of the dead puppets. Ni Ruopan's face turned pale. Me? I go and try? Madam Qing Luo, you have too much confidence in me. Just such a bloody scene and you're so scared? Then in future, how are you going to follow me to the battlefield? Yiqing Luo didn't continue to force her as her lips curled up slightly, giving a calm and indifferent smile. Ni Ruopan's petite body stiffened. Yiqing Luo continued to smile. Didn't you say, you will believe me? Ni Ruopan's 5 fingers tightly gripped the weapon in her hand. His pale face slowly regained its color. She pursed her slightly pale lips tightly. Right, I trust Madam Qing Luo. His words fell. Ni Ruopan took a deep breath and walked out of the barrier. There was no hesitation in her footsteps. Outside the barrier, Sacred Elephant couldn't help but frown. Yiqing Luo's one sentence actually had such a huge impact. It was as if it had given the seemingly weak and cowardly little girl great courage. It was as if the little girl had forgotten about the bloody, disgusting, and terrifying corpse puppets. How could a young girl like her influence the people around her so easily? What kind of magic was this? There was no time to think. Ni Ruopan resolutely walked out of the barrier. The expression on Ni Ruopan's face was firm, and she was not afraid at all. A cold gleam flashed across Xiang Xingfa's eyes as he ordered, go. Tear her to pieces. You believe in Yiqing Luo? Trusting Yiqing Luo unconditionally. He wanted to destroy the faith of these people. To let them see with their own eyes how Yiqing Luo personally pushed her companions who trusted her to death. The corpse puppets received the order. They immediately gave up on charging against the barrier and quickly turned their bodies, rushing towards Ni Ruopan's direction. The corpse puppets which had lost their arms and legs, although there wasn't a drop of blood on them. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.